going to adjust the cruise control cables on a Voyager 12. I told myself and several other people that the next time I have one of these things apart that I would videotape adjusting the cruise control cable. Common symptoms for this is when you hit the set button on the handlebars and then you let off of the button or let off of the throttle, the bike will slow down a little bit before it catches and speeds back up. It also kind of affects the hills, up and down hills, rolling hills, flint hills, stuff like that. Can play a little havoc on the system, trying to keep up. But mainly, what this adjustment does is it will be an almost instantaneous set or engagement when you hit the set button on the cruise control. This particular bike, I have not ridden have not tried the cruise control on this bike, so I don't know how well or how poorly the cruise control engages on it. It is a 94 with 29,000 miles, so age-wise it could probably stand. It will probably need to be adjusted mileage-wise. It may not need as much of an adjustment as other bikes might. What you'll need for this job is a 10mm combination wrench, 8mm socket, 10mm socket. There's 3 bolts that hold the unit to the bike. There's 2 10mm, 1 8mm. 10mm are on the top of the cruise servo. So we will take those off. I'm doing this in one take, by the way. I have not taken this off. I did vacuum out all the mice nests. It was all packed up in there. You almost couldn't see the servo. This one, see how the washer came off, but this one stuck on. You might peel that off just so you don't lose it. And then I'm going to the bottom of the cruise servo usually has a washer on the inside. Up top, you've got the washer on the outside, this rubber bushing, the metal insert. It gives it a rubber mount. There's a washer on the inside of the lower mount with the 8mm screw on it. So when you pull that out, you'll want to watch that washer. Let's see here. That washer down inside here doesn't slip back towards the back into Never Never Land. And I'll just peel those off. They're stuck to the rubber, but that way we don't lose them. And like that. So the pulley, the inner cable, the adjusting screw or ferrule with the locking jam nut, there you go, locking jam nut. There's another nut right here, that is captured by these 2 tabs that keeps that from turning, so you can screw this in or out to take the slack out in, give it more slack, take the slack out, and then the jam nut. So what you want to do to make the adjustment is you loosen the jam nut and then you'll back this out, and what it'll do is it'll take the slack out of the cable. You can see how that's a little loose right there. The manual excuse me, the manual calls for a certain spec over here. When you rotate that, wow, holy cow. The spec is about this much, and you can see how much, wow. So, I don't have the manual handy to check the spec, but I've done this enough times. But basically, when you get it tight, you know, it should move about like that. You want to have just enough slack so that it doesn't affect the idle. If you back this out too far, what it'll do is it'll actually, because you know, if you grab hold of this and actually turn it like that, you're actually turning the butterflies in the carburetor. That's just taking the slack out of the cable right there. Right there's where it stops. But if I grab hold of this and then spin it around, it's actually opening the butterflies up on the carburetor, just as if I grabbed hold of the throttle and just like that. But that's way out. So what we'll do is we'll loosen the jam nut. And then you should be able to, you can do it with your fingers, but and then you can't see if I do it with my fingers. You can just turn this out. And keep turning it. Just like adjusting the brakes on a 10-speed bicycle. And just keep going until you've got most of the slack out of that. If I loosen this nut up too far, this screw will move around and stuff. All I did was crack it, maybe give it a half turn, and that way there's just enough. Sometimes if the bolt's dirty or rusty or something like that, when you turn this screw, it'll actually turn this against the bracket, so you might have to keep hold of that while you turn the adjusting barrel. There. Would have been interesting to have ridden this bike to see how much lag there was in the cruise control setting with that much slack in it. But you see how right there, and you've got, you know, it's loose. Probably take a little more out, not a whole lot. But this is where the manual specs it. That's your clearance right there. Worst thing is if you get it too tight, the idle may be a little higher. You won't be able to adjust the idle down, and then you'd have to take the bike back apart and, you know, screw that back in. You can test ride it without the fairing and stuff on it. You just want to be careful. All these, the vents, the ductwork for the vents, you'll probably want to pull those off before you go riding, because they will come off and disappear on you down the road. But that's what that's all it is. It's just that right there. So that feels pretty good. So what we'll do is we'll tighten the jam nut back up. Double check it just in case anything, and then we will reassemble it. So again, you got 2 washers on the bottom with the 8mm. It's probably like an M6, but an 8mm head on it. 1 washer goes on the inside, 1 goes on the outside. Sometimes it can be a little tricky to get everything lined back up, but stick the bolt through 1 washer, through the rubber bushing, through the other washer, get the screw started, and take one of your tins, same thing, start it. Snug them down. Along with the 8 on the bottom. And that's it. Guys, be safe.